In this video, we will be learning about solution architect. Okay, I think you might be having some knowledge about what cloud is. Okay, so there are different types of clouds, and one of the cloud which is very big and very well known, that is AWS. So what is AWS? AWS is Amazon Web Services, which is a cloud provider. They are having their own data centers at various different locations. They provide servers and services so that you can use whenever it is needed and you can scale it as per your requirement. AWS has revolutionized it IT over the time because see, I mean, in the older times we were having multiple data centers, we were having local data centers, and we used to keep all our servers and services running in a server rooms, right? And now the things have been changed. So now people are moving towards cloud and everything they are managing from the cloud itself. And there are very less companies those who are having their own data center, they are having their own server rooms with them. So AWS powers some of the biggest websites in the world. For example, Amazon.com, it is their own website, and the Netflix, the very well-known media content website. Some of the greatest benefits of cloud computing is like trade capital expense for variable expense. So you don't need to invest like heavy amount in purchasing your hardwares, your engineers. You don't have to invest heavily on that front. So whenever you need a server, you just create an account on AWS and you can start using that uh, whatever services or whatever server you want. Benefits is like you can scale whenever needed, and it is like you can deploy your server in any region. You can deploy your server in India, you can deploy your server in US, wherever you want. It depends as per your requirements. Stop guessing the capacity. So previously what was happening is like whenever we want to create a server or maybe we want to host one application, so what we are doing is we just start analyzing like what we will need, right? For example, what will be the storage capacity, what will be the memory capacity, okay, what will be the compute power. So we used to buy like in a bunch, right? So for example, we want to host one application internally. So what we will do is we will buy 8 core of processor and let's say for example 1 TB of hard drive. But we don't know whether that will be required or not. It may work with less than what compute we are analyzing. It may work with like 4 core of processor and one, I mean 15-20 GB of storage as well. But what we are doing is we are getting more capacity because we are not knowing what exactly the application requires, right? So here with the cloud, so this is one of the benefit, like we don't need to guess the capacity. We can start with minimum and we can scale as and when needed. Increase speed and agility. So it is like in a cloud computing environment, new IT resources are only ever a click away. So if you think like I want to have a server, I want to start my business, just it's a click away. You can deploy your own server, you can start your website running on that particular server. Stop spending money on running and maintaining data centers. So no need of data centers. When we run a data center, it requires a lot of compute power, it requires air conditions, it requires electricity, it requires power backup. So many things are required, right? So we don't need to invest heavily on that front. Go global in a minute. So as I said, you think of having a server and you have that. So typical traditional infrastructure, we were having firewalls in with us, we were having local access control list, we were having personal, I mean the person who is handling that particular infrastructure. From the networking point of view, we were having routers, network pipelines, switches, and etc. And from servers, we were having different servers like rack servers, tower servers. For example, I mean, there are different. We used to. I mean, for a small companies, what they do is they buy a desktop and they call it as a server and they put it in the server room. So that's how the typical data centers of a company looks like. And from the storage point of view, we were having DAS, SHAN, NAS, RDBMS, so on. Now, if we go with the cloud, the entire structure gets changed. Instead of having physical things, we get everything as a virtual. For example, for security, we can call it as a security group. So this is one of the firewall we get with Amazon Web Services uh, when you run a EC2 instance. I will make you show that in a practical example. NACL is again a network access control list. IAM is one of the service wherein we can manage all the users, permissions, roles of different services. In networking, we have Elastic Load Balancer, that is ELB, and a VPC. VPC is Virtual Private Cloud. This helps in creating a dedicated network for our infrastructure requirement. So we can decide which IP range we want. So we can have that particular IP range in that particular VPC. We will see all this in examples, live examples. In servers, we have AMIs, that is Amazon Machine Image. This is a virtual image of a server. I mean, when we in local environment, what we used to do, we have ISO images. So that is the same image we get in Amazon infrastructure, but the naming convention is different. That is AMI, that is Amazon Machine Image. That image gets deployed on different services. I mean, EC2 instances. From storage and database point of view, we have Amazon EBS, that is Elastic Block Storage. This Elastic Block Storage gets attached with EC2 instance as a hard drive. Amazon EFS is Elastic File System. This works as a NAS drive. Amazon S3 is a very flexible, very elastic in nature. We can expand it up to terabytes, petabytes of storage. Amazon RDS is one of the services called Database Management System, that is Relational Database Service. So this is a fully managed service. AWS manages that completely. We just need to deploy our database on top of it. So these are some of the foundational services of AWS. In compute, we can see Elastic Compute EC2, AWS Lambda, Amazon EC2 Container Service, Elastic Load Balance, AWS Elastic Beanstalk, and autoscaling. In networking, we have Amazon VPC, Route 53. We will see all these in details. Okay, we will go step by step. AWS Direct Connect. In storage, we get Amazon S3, Amazon CloudFront, Amazon Glacier, Amazon Elastic File System, AWS Storage Gateway, AWS Import Exports, Snowball. In security, we have Amazon Identity and Access Management, AWS KMS, AWS Directory Services, AWS Cloud HSM, AWS WAF. And applications, we have Amazon WorkDocs, Amazon Workspace, Amazon WorkMail. So there are various different services of AWS. There are many services that can be integrated with each other to create an entire infrastructure. So we can call it as a spaghetti bowl where all the noodles are mixed. We just need to pick what we want. So in AWS, there are regions. So regions means AWS data centers are deployed in various different geographies, right? So here you can see, let me just show it to you. Yeah. So here you can see there are blue dots and the orange dots, right? So blue dots are all the geographical regions. So these are the regions where AWS is having their own data centers. AWS has regions all around the world. Names can be used as EU West East 1, EU West 3. Here you can see there are different regions which are there: EU West North Virginia, EU East Ohio, EU West North California, EU West Oregon. So wherever you want to deploy your services, you can deploy anywhere in the world. So most of the AWS services are region and scope based. So for example, EC2 instance. So if you want to go and deploy your server EC2 instance in US, right? So you can select any of this region. Either it can be US East 1, US East 2, or US East West 1, or US East West 2. Okay. So there is a bigger picture of region. So region is the geographical based region, whether it is US, North America, Australia, India, Asia. So these are all the regions. So here you can see there are orange dots which are already present, and the green dots, they are coming. They are coming soon. I mean, AWS is planning and going to deploy their data center soon in that particular region. So here we can see, I mean, AWS region. So there is one region, for example, India is one region. So in India, AWS is having their own region and they have their own data center in it. In region, there are different availability zones. For example, in India, AWS is having 3 data centers. For example, data center 1 is in Bangalore, data center 2 is in Mumbai, and data center 3 is in Chennai. All availability zones. These are called as availability zones. So each region consists of minimum 2 availability zones. Minimum 2 availability zones or maximum 3 availability zones, depending on the feasibility from AWS end. There are regions where there are 6 availability zones as well. So these availability zones are interconnected data centers with high-speed link. These are interconnected data centers with high-speed links. And these are geographically segregated. I mean, one will be in, for example, northern side, one will be in eastern side. So they are totally different from each others. It is not like one data center in a different rooms. It is totally different. Regions are geographical locations, consist of minimum 2 availability zones. Availability zones are groups or cluster of data center. So this is a cluster of data center or a group of data center we can call. It is isolated from failures. So if anything goes wrong with this data center, your data is still secured with this availability zone. Your data keeps on rotating in all these regions or in the manner you configure your infrastructure. For example, you configured one data center, I mean, your one database server, right, which is there in this availability zone, Bangalore, and you have configured one more backup database in Mumbai, and there is continuous replication which is happening. So for example, if this data center got down, your database still will be available from this data center. So this is how you can configure your highly available availability zone. Each region has many availability zones, usually 3, and minimum is 2 and maximum is 6. So as I said, there is one region in AWS which is having 6 availability zones in it. Example, AP Southeast 2A, 2B, and 2C. So this 2A, 2B, and 2C, you can call it as the availability zones. 2A is availability zone 1, 2B, and 2C. So these are all the different availability zones. Each availability zone is one or more discrete data centers with redundant power, networking, and connectivity. So there is full flexibility, I mean, full redundancy of your entire infrastructure. It consists of data centers with redundant power, networking, and the connectivity, ISP connectivity. They are separated from each other so that they are isolated from a disaster. If there is an earthquake in Mumbai, but there is no earthquake in Bangalore, so your data resides in Bangalore, will be safe, and your application can be served from here as well. They are connected with high bandwidth, ultra low latency network. Very high bandwidth and very low latency between each other. Edge locations. An edge location is where end user access service located at AWS. So for example, you must have heard about Cloudflare or CloudFront. That is a CDN service, that is content delivery service. So what happens is when you host a website, any of the website, right, and which is having the whole lot of images in it. So I'm sitting in India, right, and your website is hosted in US. So when you try to access your website from India, it will take some time to load your website and images and everything, right? So if you opt for such services like the CloudFront or Cloudflare, this is a CDN services. So what it does is your contents get delivered to different regions, to different edge locations. So for example, your website is hosted in US and you have selected this CloudFront as a service, right? So your data will be like your website data will be available in India, in US, in Middle East, and in Australia and everywhere. So wherever you want to select, you can select that those regions. So for example, the user sitting in India, if they try to access that your website, your content will be served from India itself. It does not need to travel to US to load your images or the web pages. So it will be faster. The performance of your website will be more faster. So this is where edge location comes in picture, wherein all your all your data resides in different edge locations of AWS. So there are 50 plus edge locations across the world. AWS CloudFront is one of the service which you can use as a CDN, and AWS Route 53 is a DNS service. So if you want to make any changes in your DNS entries, you can use AWS Route 53. IAM introduction. What is IAM? As I said, Identity and Access Management Service. It is one of the service which is a global, which is globally available. It is not a region-specific service. So if you go and create a IAM user, that user can access any of the region, whichever you allow, right? So it is a global service. I will show you in the demo as well. Your whole AWS security is there. AWS security means, I mean, you can create your users, you can create your groups, you can define the roles and policies for different users, permissions and everything from IAM section. Root account. So root account should never be used. Root account is like when you first time enroll for AWS or when you first time create your AWS account, that account is called as a root account. So the best practice says that you should never use your root account. There are many cases which has happened, like the root account password got compromised and the customer has got, I mean, the huge amount of billing. There was one customer of mine, I mean, for one of my company, his root account got compromised somehow and he got, I think, $25,000 bill for a month. So that is something which is a not a good practice. If you want to use it for a regular purpose, you can create your own account, IAM account, IAM user, and you can specify the permissions like I only want to allow this user to use EC2 services only. So your risk gets reduced. We will see this in examples as well. User must be created with the proper permissions. IAM is a center of AWS. Policies are written in JSON format. So I hope you know what JSON is. It is a scripting language, JavaScript option object notations. If it is not known, that is not a problem, but I think it is good to learn this languages as well. Okay. User is a physical person, right? Groups, it is a group of different users. It is like we can have a group of function-based groups. It is like admin groups or DevOps groups, or the departmental groups like engineering or design, which contains a different users. What is role? Role is internal usage within AWS resources. So I will show you how to write a roles. Roles are basically used for you can create a role for Kapil Sharma. That Kapil Sharma is can do so and so things in the AWS, right? Or you can write rules for AWS services. For example, let's say I want to run EC2 instance, and from that EC2 instance, I want to access particular AWS services, for example, S3. So what happens is like I need to have specific credentials to access S3. And if I don't have, I cannot go and access S3 buckets from EC2 instance. So for that also we can create a rule wherein you don't need to do anything. You don't need to specify credentials. You can directly go and access your S3 buckets. So everything so all these activities can be done with IAM console. So policies are written in JSON format, defines what each of the above can or cannot do. Again, some of the same things. IAM has a global view. Permissions are governed by policies. MFA is multi-factor authentication can be set up. So it is always recommended. So if you go and create your account for the first time, it is good to have multi-factor authentication. I must say it is must to have. It is not good to have. It is must to have for a security purpose. IAM has predefined or managed policies. So there are various policies which are already there. You can go and select those policies instead of creating your own policies, and you can use that. Okay, these policies are maintained by AWS. We will see IAM policies in detail in future. It is best to give users with a minimal amount of permissions they need to do or they need to perform their duties, which is called as the least privilege principle. IAM federations, federation, you must be knowing about Active Directory federations and everything. So, for example, if you want to have some kind of integrations of IAM with your Active Directory or LDAP, then you can use IAM federation services. Big enterprises usually integrate their own repositories of users with IAM. This is one way one can log into AWS using their company credentials. So, for example, if you are having your own Active Directory and you want to integrate those users directly to IAM federations, you can do that. Identity federations uses the SAML. Some randoms, IAM is a physical person or a physical user, we can say. IAM role per applications, we can have one IAM role per applications. IAM credentials should never be shared. You should not share your credentials with anyone else. Never ever write IAM credentials in a code. So you should not write code in such a way that it is clearly readable format. Avoid doing such things. And even less, never commit your IAM credentials. Don't commit anywhere like GitHub or any repositories. Just sanitize your codes before uploading it to any of the repositories. Never use root account except for initial setup. So once you are done with the initial setup, you can go and create your own users and start using that only. Never use root IAM credentials. So you will see all these things in a demo. We will start now. Okay, so we will go and check AWS console, and I will show you the entire IAM. So this is the AWS management console, and let us go in details. You can go to IAM. So here you can see this is a global service. How you can identify that whether this is a global or this is a region specific. So here you can see it is a global service. IAM does not require a region selection. And if you go and select EC2, we will again come back here. If you go and select EC2, here you can see it will be a region specific. It will be a region specific. You need to go and select your region from in which region you want to use this service. We will again go to IAM. So here you can see this is a complete dashboard of IAM. Here you can see groups, users, roles, policies, identity provider, account settings, and all these things, right? So first we will go to users, or we can see users only. We can go directly. Yeah, here you can go and click on add users. Which user you want to add? For example, demo admin. Which type of access you want to provide? For example, it can be a programmatic access, or it can be an AWS management console. I hope you know what exactly programmatic access is, right? It can be like using AWS API, CLI, or SDK, or any kind of development tool. So for that, you need programmatic access, right? And if it is not required, it is highly recommended not to enable this. And if it is required AWS management console, you can go and select AWS management console. You can create your own password. I will keep it auto generated. Require password reset at the next sign in. You can keep it if you want. Go to next. Here it will ask you to add the user into a group. So if you have group already created, you can go and add that user directly to a group, and you don't need to assign any kind of permission, right? And if you do not have any kind of group, then you can go and select next tag. Next, review and create user. So we have created a user. Now what we will do is we will go and create a group, and we will add that newly created user into a group, right? Okay. I'm giving a name, administrator group. Next, here you can see there are different policies. So you can see these orange boxes. This indicates that this policy is created and managed by AWS. You can go and create a filter. You can select AWS managed, job functions, or customer managed. If you go and create your custom policies, you will find it here, customer managed. And if you have not created any, you can go and start using AWS managed. So here, for example, I am selecting administrator access. Next, I'm giving this administrator access to this group. Create a group. Okay. Now I'm going and adding a user into this group. Add a user to a group. Demo admin. Add user. So now this demo admin user is having a complete administrative access of EC2 service. AWS. Sorry. And if you want to be a specific, then what you can do is you can create again. Go to this administrator group. I will remove this existing permission which I have given. Detach a policy, detach, and now I will only provide the permissions for EC2. EC2. Here you can see there are different services: Amazon EC2 full access, Amazon EC2 read only access. So there are different services. If I go and select this, user will only be able to go and see this services and perform administrative actions in these services, not anywhere else. If it go to any other services, there will be a message that it will be access denied. Policies. Here the same policies where we have seen while creating a group, all the policies will be here. You can go and filter it by customer managed, AWS managed, function managed, all these things. If you want to go and create your own personal policy, you can go and select create policy. Here you will get good nice options for creating policy. For example, I am selecting EC2. What actions you want to allow? So there are different options. Very granular level permissions you can define. Okay, so for example, I just wanted to allow all the list functions and the read functions. Okay, and which resources? I want to select it for all the resources. Or if you want to be only for the specific services, for example, I have created one EC2 instance. Okay, and I only want to allow that particular instance to be managed by Amit or Kapil, right? So I will provide only that particular ARN. ARN is Amazon resource name. That is whenever you create any of the services, that will have a unique number. So that number you can uh, provide it here, and that permission only be applicable to that particular ARN. Request conditions: if you want that this service is only accessed when MFA is there, or MFA should be there. Whenever Kapil is going to access these EC2 services, then multi-factor authentication is must to have. You can select that. Or if you want to restrict it from a specific IP, for example, I am working in XYZ company and there is a static IP of that company, and that services need to be open only from this IP. So you can bind that IP here. You can whitelist that IP here. So this is how you can create your own permissions, all the different options. You can see here whatever permissions you want to allow, you can select. If you do not want to allow, you can just remove that permissions. It will not be applicable. Same way, if you want to go and select any other services, all the services which are there in AWS, everything, all the permissions of AWS services can be managed from this IAM console. So this is very important and very critical from the exam point of view and from the uh, management point of view. If you know how to write a JSON script, you can go and directly write your own JSON script here. So this is how JSON script look like. And if you know how to write, you can write all these parameters and you can create your own permissions. The next is EC2, which is called as Elastic Compute Cloud. So what EC2 service is, it is nothing but a virtual server or a virtual computer running in a different data center, right? So this is, I mean, a server which is running in AWS data center. User sitting at home or office can access that server, can configure that server, can do whatever he want, right? EC2 is a virtual private server residing on AWS cloud, that is AWS data center. It is resizable compute capacity in cloud. So whatever compute capacity you want, you can decide on your own and you can start using that. You get complete control of your computing resource, right? So you get complete flexibility, like what you want to configure, how you want to configure, which services you want, which application you want to install. It is completely your choice. Reduce time required to obtain and boot new server instance. So as we have seen, like it is a great flexibility we get with cloud, that we just think it off and we have a server. We don't need to go into hassle, like we just need to go and contact the vendors, evaluate which server we want, get the pricing, get the quotation done, billing and everything. So it is, we get free from all these hassles, and we want a server, we get on the fly. So EC2 is one of the most popular service of AWS. It is mainly consist of the capability of renting a virtual machine, storing data on virtual drives, which is called EBS, distributing load across machines, that is ELB, that is Elastic Load Balancer. So if you are having two different server and you want to manage a load, you can use Elastic Load Balancer on top of it, and you can properly balance your or distribute your load in those two different EC2 instances. Scaling the services using auto scaling group, that is ASG. You can create architecture in such a way that whenever there is a spike in a load, or whenever there is a spike in a traffic coming in or user logging in, you can have one more instance or couple of more instance running it, so that it can cater that particular load, right? So that service is we called as auto scaling group. So all these things we will see in a practical how it works, how we can create auto scaling group, how this scaling happens automatically, and how it gets reduced when not needed. Knowing EC2 is fundamental to understand how cloud works. Hands-on practical, let us see. We will launch an EC2 instance running on Linux. We will be launching our first virtual server on AWS console. We will get first high-level approach to various parameters. We will learn how to start, stop, terminate our instance. So let us go to AWS console and we will see how we can create AWS Linux instance. We will go to EC2 service. Here, this is a dashboard of EC2. Here you can see there are different parameters are there. The resources, there are no instances running, no elastic IP, no key pair. Key pairs are there. I mean, I used to keep on doing juggleries on this particular account, so you might find multiple things. I'm currently in North Virginia, and I will be hosting my test server in North Virginia only. So if you want to go and create an instance, you can go to instances. Here you can see the launch instance option. Click on that. Here there are different options. Choose an Amazon machine image. Machine image is like which image you want, whether it is Windows, whether it is Ubuntu, CentOS, whatever image you want. So there are different images which are there created by Amazon, will be listed here. If you have your own custom image created by yourself, you can find it here, My AMIs. AWS Marketplace is one of the place where there are different vendors. They create their own image and they sell it here. Or there are some images which are freely available. For example, this is the marketplace. Here you can see there are different uh, players, Barracuda, Juniper, Trend Micro. There are different vendors. They create their own image. You just need to click on that. You can start using that and you will be charged per hour basis. We will go with quick start. I will choose Ubuntu 20.04. Select. Here you will get different options, different compute options. There are different sizings or different family of EC2 instance. You can select as per your requirement. For demo and free tier, you can use free tier eligible only, so that you will not be charged for that. If you go and use any of the other which is not free tier eligible, you will be charged on your credit card or debit card, whichever you have configured in your AWS account. So we will go and select this T2 micro. We will go and create next. The number of instance, for example, you want the same instance in 3 quantity. You can have 3 instance at a time starting, right? We will go with 1. Purchasing options we will look after later in this videos, and then we will learn what exactly spot instance is. Networking we have not learned, but we will go with the default network. The default network, when you create your AWS account, the default network will be there, right? So there is a default VPC which is available. You can start using that. You can deploy your instances or services in that particular VPC. Subnet. So as I said, subnets can be created with the different availability zones. Remember, we have availability zones. There are isolated data centers. So here you can see there are different availability zones. East 1A. So this is one of the region where there are 6 data centers. 6 availability zones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So wherever you want your services to be deployed, you can select that. I will choose US East 1A. Auto assign public IP. Currently it is by default enabled as per the VPC setting. We will see this in details during VPC section. Capacity reservations we will see later. IAM role we will see later. Shutdown behavior. So whenever you want to go and click on shutdown, what should happen? It should stop or it should terminate. Terminate means it is completely destroy. Stop means it will shut down your system. We will keep as a stop. Then we will keep all the other options as it is. We will not mess with that. We will make you understand what exactly all these features are, what all these configurations are. Network instance, this will be automatically one network interface will be added to this EC2 instance. We will not go with advanced details. Add storage. We will go with same 8 GB of ELB. This is called elastic block storage. Okay, this works as a hard drive of EC2 instance. So you can define your own size, whatever size you want. We will go with 8 GB as of now. There are different types of volumes, which is general purpose SSD, general purpose SSD GP3. So these are again different parameters. Depending on your applications or your services which you are going to deploy on this, you can select the based on the performance. We will go with default. Throughput will be automatically delete on terminations. If you deselect this, so whenever you want, whenever you go and delete this EC2 instance, your hard drive will be safe. If it is ticked, and if you go and delete your EC2 instance, your backend hard drive will also be deleted. Encryption, if you want to encrypt the hard drive, you can choose your KMS encryption key and you can encrypt the hard drive. You will not encrypt as of now. Add a tag. If you want to add a tag, for example, name my first instance. So this is one of the key tag. Security group. Securities group is one of the firewall for EC2 instance. So whichever services we want to allow, we can allow from here. we must be knowing like which service is using which port number and from where we want to allow. So I will create my first security group. I'm currently allowing only EC2, I mean SSH, which is shell access, and I'm currently allowing it from anywhere. So this is not a good practice. You should allow only from a whitelisted IP. You should not allow it from anywhere. So here you can see the warning: improve a security instance is open to the world, right? So this is something which is a management port, and we are allowing it from anywhere. So there you can see a security warning. Then you can go and click on launch. Here I will go and create my first instance key pair. Key pair is used for accessing your EC2 instance. You can go and download key pair and launch instance. Your instance is launching. Okay, now here you can see your instance is up and running, right? So you can go and select, just a second, you can go and select your instance, and here you can see all the details about your instance, like what is the instance ID, what is the public IP of it, what is the public DNS, which type of instance it is, in which VPC this resides, what is the subnet ID, what is the platform, Ubuntu, Linux, launch time, which Amazon image you have used. So all the detail you will get it from here. Security, like which security group you have assigned and what are the ports which you have opened, right? Networking, again the VPC details, the public IP, private IP, storage. Here you can see the a mapping point where it is being mapped and which is the hard drive, that is Dave SDA. Block device, this is a volume ID. Dave SDA size is 8 GB and attached. Status check, here you can see it is still initializing, so instance is not completely up. So this is something which is a system check which is happening when you create a new instance. And if it is not healthy and if it is not a green, so here you can see there are two checks, it will be passed. So if it is not passed, you can go and analyze that what exactly wrong with this, and there will be definitely a problem with your instance or your services if it is not green. Monitoring, here you can get different monitoring parameters like CPU load, memory, everything. You can check it from here, from memory monitoring section. Tags, the tag which we have given, right? So the name, my first instance, you can go and add more tags if you want. So now we will try to go and access this particular instance, whether it is accessible or not. We will go and check. We will copy this public IP, and you can add your user, and only your user should be having the permission of this particular key. The another way of doing it, you can have putty keygen. You can open putty keygen. You can load your private key, which we have downloaded. We will go to download all files, my first instance. Okay, so now you can go and save a private key. Yes, we will select desktop. My first instance. So this way you can export your private key. You can go again and go to putty. You can write it here, ubuntu@IP address, and you can go and select the SSH key, the key which we have created. So this is another way of accessing your instance. So one way is like converting your key PEM file into a PPK file using putty keygen. The other way is using the same PEM file, but changing the permission of it using Windows command prompt. So once we are in to that particular server, we can go and do whatever we want, right? For example, we will run some command and we will try to host a web server in it. Apt install or apt update. First we will do apt update. Sudo apt update. Sudo is required because sudo, I mean the Ubuntu user is not having the admin permission, so sudo is one command to elevate the privileges. Now we will install sudo apt apache 2. Apache is one of the web server which you can use, Apache or Nginx, whichever you want. Once installed, we will start the services. Service Apache 2. Start. Okay. Sudo. Okay, now the Apache is running. Now we will try to access that service from a web browser. Whether that is accessible or not, we will go and check. So here you can see it is not opening. Now we will go and update our security groups. We will go to our instance, go to security, click on security group, then click on edit inbound rules, add HTTP port 80 from anywhere, save rule. So once you are done with this, you can go and see this default page. So this is how you can deploy your EC2 instance within fraction of seconds. Just think it off, you can have your server ready within some time, right? You don't need to go and buy a bulky servers, keep it into a data centers, have a person dedicated managing those particular data centers, right? There is one more way of accessing EC2 instance. I mean, if you want to go and connect to EC2 instance, there is one more way. I will show it to you. So here, select your EC2 instance. Here you can see there is an option of connect, right? When you click on connect, there are different options. EC2 instance connect. When you click on this, it will open a web browser and connect your SSH directly into the web browser, right? So this is one way of connecting. The other way is session manager. Session manager is something you need to install certain clients, SSM agent on this EC2 instance, and after that only you will be able to run the session manager. The third way, which we have already seen from a command prompt or from putty. So this is the third way of accessing EC2 instance, where you can see the you get the shell access of your server, right? Now we will see some other options. Here we have created an instance. Here from these options you can see the volume attached to it. If you want to go and see the volume, you can go and click on volumes. You will find different volumes which you have created, right? Here you can see the volume. Snapshot, for example, if you have created any snapshot of your volume or your EC2 instance, all snapshot will be visible here. Security groups, if you know the name of a security group, you can go and click on that and you can start managing those security groups. You can go and change your security group as per your requirement. Key pairs, so there are different key pairs. If you want to go and remove those key pairs, unused key pairs, you can select those and delete those key pairs. The other options we will see later when we go further. Now we will go and destroy this instance. We don't need this instance, otherwise it will keep on charging me. Here you can see the status check, which I have shown it to you, that 2x2 status check means it is fully functional and up and running. Click on instance state, terminate instance, click on terminate. So this is something which we have already seen, Linux SSH into EC2 instance. Windows we have seen with PuTTY and command prompt. EC2 instance connect your EC2 instance within your browser. No need to use your keys files that was downloaded. The magic is that temporary key is uploaded onto EC2 instance by AWS. So you don't need to access, I mean, the key which you have downloaded, you don't need to use that particular key. So there will be one key which will be created, uploaded to your EC2 instance, and using that key, you can access your EC2 services, I mean EC2 SSH within the browser. You need to make sure the port number 22 is still opened. If your port 22 is not open and you have restricted that, this will not work. So you need to make sure 22 is open. Introduction to security groups. Security groups are fundamentals of network security in AWS. We have seen already, like there are so many different ports which you can keep on allowing, denying as per your requirement, right? So the best practices you can follow. The administrative ports which are not required, you should restrict those ports, and other ports which are allowed to be accessible outside, then you can allow those ports from outside. They control how traffic is allowed into your EC2 instance in or out. Inbound and outbound traffic can be filtered using security groups. It is important fundamental skills to learn to troubleshoot networking issues. In this lecture, we will learn how to use them to allow inbound and outbound ports. So we have already seen this in our previous demo. So security groups deeper dive. Security groups are acting as a firewall on EC2 instance. They regulate access to ports, authorize IP ranges, IPv4 and IPv6. So if you are using IPv6, you can still restrict the IPv6 IP address. Control of inbound network from others to the instance. I mean, all the traffic coming in, you can restrict that. Control outbound network. So if whatever you want to allow traffic going out from your EC2 instance, that also you can restrict in inbound rules. So here you can see there is one example which is showing that HTTP TCP port 80 is allowed, and this is allowed from anywhere. This is for HTTP test page. SSH port 22, which is restricted to a particular IP. Custom TCP rule, again there will be one port for one of the Java application which they have allowed it from anywhere, right? So you can design as per your requirement. Some good to know about security groups. These security groups can be attached to multiple instances. It is not necessary that you have to create a separate security group for separate services. You can attach one single security group to multiple services. Lockdown to a region, VPC combinations. Again, it is a region-based service. So if you have created an security group in North Virginia, you will not be able to find that particular security group in Mumbai region or India region. Does live outside the EC2. If the traffic is blocked, the EC2 instance won't see it. So for example, if any traffic is coming in and if it is blocked by the EC2, I mean the security group firewall, then that traffic will not reach to your EC2 instance. You will not see any kind of log that this traffic is getting blocked by security groups. It is good to maintain one separate security group for SSH. So the kind of administrative task which we used to do, I mean, SSH is one of the administrative control to control your entire EC2 machine, right? So it is good to maintain a separate security group for that. And for other services, you can have a other security group. If your application is not accessible or maybe timeout, then it can be an issue with the security group. So this can be one of the question in exam that my web server is not accessible or maybe my application is not reachable. What can be the issue, right? So there can be different questions, I mean, different answers. You can choose, I mean, it can be the issue with the security groups. If your application gave connection refused, then it can be an application error or it is not launched. If it is giving timeout, then it can be an issue with security group. But if it is giving connection refused, then it can be an issue with your application as well. All the inbound traffic is blocked by default. So this is also one of the exam question, that what kind of rules are there when you create the security group for the first time. So by default, all the inbound traffic is blocked by default and all outbound traffic is authorized by default. Some fundamental difference about public and private IP. Public IP means the machine can be identified on internet. It can be accessed via internet. It is a unique IP address across the whole web. Not two machines have a same public IP. Can be geolocated easily. Easily. You can identify from where this IP is. You can go and search this IP. You will get the region from where it is coming. Private IP means the machine can only be identified on a private network. So that IP you will not be able to reach from anywhere from the internet. The IP must be unique across the private network. But two different private networks or two different companies can have a same IP range. So that is true, right? You can also use the same private range. I can also use the same private IP range. Machines connect to WWE using a NAT plus internet gateway as a proxy. So if you want to have your locally hosted web server accessible outside, what you can do is you can have a NAT in place, or you can have a firewall which is having a proxy facility or NAT facility, and you can have the web server accessible outside. Only specified range of IPs can be used as a private IP. So there is a range of IP address which you can use it as a private IP address. Elastic IP is one of the services in AWS. Elastic IP is nothing but a static IP. So whenever you go and create an EC2 instance, you by default get one public IP. If that EC2 instance is in a public VPC or public subnet. I will make you understand what public subnet and what private subnet are and how we can go and create, in a VPC section, we will see all these things. So just understand the concept. Elastic IP is nothing but it is only a static IP address which you get as a long-term IP address. So when you create an EC2 instance and you get one IP address as a public IP address, but that IP address is not static. When you stop your instance and again start after some days, your IP address will get changed. Or when you stop your instance and start after 2 minutes or 5 minutes, your IP will get changed. You will not get a static IP address. So what you can do is you can opt for elastic IP address. Elastic IP address is free of cost. You will not charged for that until and unless that elastic IP address is attached to some instance or some service and it is live. If it is kept idle and not in attached mode or not in use, you will be charged for that. So make sure that elastic IP is there, but it is in use, not kept idle. We will see how you can assign the elastic IP address. So when you stop and start the EC2 instance, it can change its public IP. If you need to have a fixed public IP address for your instance, you need to have elastic IP address. An elastic IP is a public IPv4 you own as long as you need. You can attach it to one instance at a time. So you can only use it once at a time. You cannot attach a same public IP to a multiple instance or a multiple services. Elastic IP, with an elastic IP, you can mask the failure of instance or a software by rapidly remapping the address to another instance. For example, I am currently running one server, a web server of mine, right? So that web server is hosting my website on top of it. That server was having some problem, and I need to go and troubleshoot that. But I don't want my users to have any kind of impact just because of I am doing something with my server. So what I have done is I have created one more server, same identical server, with a backup of 2 days back, and After doing that, I have done all the kind of testing. I have make sure that my server is up and running with all the data and everything in it. Within 2 minutes of second, I mean, within 2 minutes, I have changed my public IP. What I've done is I have taken my Elastic IP address from the older instance, mapped it to a newer instance. So within fraction of seconds, my new server is live in production. So there is no downtime. So this is a beauty of Elastic IP. You can detach from one instance and attach it to another instance within fraction of seconds. So there will be no downtime. You create your new server, attach it to a new server, and it is up and running as in a production environment. You can only have 5 Elastic IP in your account, and if you want to increase, you can raise a request to AWS, and they will help you to increase the number of counts. Try to avoid using Elastic IP. They often reflect poor architectural decision. This is something, I mean, you can use a DNS as a DNS name instead of Elastic IP. Instead, use a random public IP and register a DNS name to it. So we will see how we can use DNS name instead of Elastic IP when we go in Route 53 section. Route 53 is one of the services provided by AWS as a DNS service. So in that section, you will find that instead of IP address, we can have a DNS name, map that DNS name to a Route 53, and you can start using that instead of IP address. Select Ubuntu. Yes, next. I will select T2 micro. Same, nothing I will change here. Next. Next. Security group, I will provide the security group which I have created in my last demo. My first security group. Next. Launch. Key pair, I will choose my existing key pair which I have created. I acknowledge, launch. So here you can see my instance is launching. So this time I have not selected in which subnet I want to have my EC2 instance running. You can see here in networking section, IP address. Yeah. So this is the VPC and this is the subnet. So if you want to go and select which subnet it is, just click on that. A separate console will open. So this is the subnet. US East 1A. It is by default in that particular region. So I have not selected this time. It has automatically selected US East 1A, right? So my instance is up and running. It is still in status check, but still I can go and access the server. Here now you can see every server, there will be one private IP address attached to it. Nevertheless, whether you have public IP or not. If the server is in public subnet, you will definitely have both the IP address, private IP and public IP. But if the instance is in private subnet, where you don't have any kind of proxy or netting in it, you will only have private IP address. So all the instance will definitely have one private IP address to it, right? So in this instance is in public subnet. So this is having both public and private. There will be a private DNS. You can ping it using this internal DNS, and you can also ping using this private public DNS, IP DNS. If you go and copy this and paste it here, but I think there is nothing installed on it. So let us first connect, EC2 connect. We'll again do the same thing. If you want to run things as a administrator, sudo su apt install I'm installing Apache 2 in it, and I will access using instead of public IP, I'm accessing using public DNS. And if you go and ping your public DNS, it will be reachable. Here you can see it is mapped to your IP address, which is assigned to your EC2 instance. I have not allowed ICMP protocol, so it is not pinging. But if you go and allow the ICMP protocol, it will give you a ping response. I will start services. Apache 2 start. Here it is. Now you can hit this and you can see Apache Ubuntu page default page is coming, right? So your web server is up and running and ready. Now I will show you how you can map Elastic IP address to this instance. So you can go to Elastic IP section, Elastic IPs, click on that. I don't have any kind of Elastic IP in my account. I will go and allocate a new Elastic IP address. Select the same region. Allow Amazon Pool IPv4 address. Click on allocate. When you click on allocate, you will find that there is one IP address which you have got. Now, if you want to go and attach this Elastic IP, select the IP address, click on action, associate Elastic IP address. You can attach this IP address to an instance, EC2 instance, or the network interface. So, for example, if you are having one EC2 instance but having multiple network card in it, right? So you can attach to a specific network interface. I'm going ahead and selecting instance. Here you will find one instance which is there in my account and it is running. Select that and click on associate. So now your IP address is associated with your EC2 instance. You can go and click on instance. Here you can see your IP address got changed. And when you copy that, you will find it is accessible. (172) Just a second, refresh. Yeah, here it is. Elastic IP address is this one. This one 118. Okay, copy neighbor. Here it is. This is accessible with your Elastic IP address. Here you can see which Elastic IP address is assigned to your instance, Elastic IP address, right? If you want to disassociate, you can go and again go to this Elastic IP section, click on IP address, disassociate Elastic IP address, click on disassociate. It will be removed. If you want to release this IP address, just click on this IP address action and release the IP address. So always remember this practice. If you are not using this, always remove this. Otherwise, it will keep on charging you on your account and you have to pay those amount, or it will automatically get deducted from your card. And if you do not have the Elastic IPs, then the IP address, the public IP address which you see, it will keep on changing. If you restart the instance, it will not change. I mean, for example, this instance, if you go and restart, reboot instance, the IP address will remain same, 141. See, and if you go and stop the instance, currently the IP address you can see the current IP address is 54.91.225.141. Okay, we will go and stop the instance. Click on stop. Within seconds, your instance will get stopped. Your instance is stopped. Now we will again start this instance. Click on start. My previous IP was this 59.91.225.141. We will see now which IP we get. Here you can see the IP address got changed. Now it is 34.26.205.184. So whenever you go and stop your instance, your IP will get changed. So if you do not want your IP to be changed, you must use elastic IP address, right? We'll go and terminate the instance. I do not want to increase my billing. I'm removing this. So these all things we have seen, private IP versus public IP. By default, your EC2 instance comes with a private IP address and internal DNS name, a public IP for WWE. When we are doing SSH into your EC2 instance, we cannot use private IP address, but we have to use a public IP address. And if you are having some kind of connectivity between your AWS environment and your local environment, then you can use your private IP address. If your machine is in stop and then start, the public IP is changed. So this, we have seen the demo, launching an EC2 instance with Apache server on top of it. We have installed Apache web server and we were successfully able to see the Ubuntu web page, I mean Apache web page.